Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us again for another local spotlight series. I'm really excited about today's guest. But before we do that, really quickly, in the comment section below, there's a PayPal link. If you are so inclined to help K&E Theater Group with our 2021 Supersize season, you can donate on Facebook in that link, that PayPal link below. If you're not on Facebook, you're on IGTV, you're on our YouTube channel, or you want to donate later, you can always go to our website, which is ketg.org, click on donate to KETG, support KETG, and you can donate there. Well, I'm really excited about today's interview. Everybody knows his name, ladies and gentlemen, Danny Eaton. Hi, Danny.
Hey, Eddie. Hello.
Hello, how you doing?
Good, good. We made it finally.
We made it, we're here.
We are.
All right, we're gonna jump right into the interview.
Sure.
And I'm gonna ask you the same question I ask everybody at the beginning, and that is, what is your theatrical timeline? Where did you start? Where are you now? And all the little tidbits in the middle.
You know, I'm old, so that's a long answer, Eddie.
We got the time.
You know, I have to kind of credit my dad, really, because he was a great storyteller, and he would just spin stuff off the top of his brain, you know, on a moment's notice. And so as a young kid, I always imagined myself as a storyteller. And you know, to this day, I say that's what I do. I tell stories. They happen to be on stage, whether I'm writing them or directing them or producing them. You know, I'm telling stories. So, but you know, when I was still in the service in the Marine Corps back in the '60s, I'm dating myself. You know, today's actually the Man on the Moon Day, right? It's the 51st anniversary. Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, I was living in Spain and kind of trying to write seriously, and a lot of it was kind of short fiction, kind of strong Hemingway influence, you know, that kind of thing. And I dashed off a short play one day. I don't know why it was a play. I have no idea. And in hindsight, I have to say it was like pretty bad, you know, but you know, so I threw it in a trunk, and, you know, I began my college career after I got out of the service in 1970. And this woman who was a drama teacher put together a drama club, and she said, and I said, well, you know, I have a play. And she said, well, bring it in and let me look at it. And so she said, well, I'll produce it. And I said,
wow.
What? You know? And, you know, by then I'd been, you know, submitting short stories like all over the place, and, you know, mostly getting rejection slips. And sometimes I'd end up, you know, getting a letter from an editor or something like that, you know. But so she produced this play, this not very good play. And I quickly dashed off another one, which was kind of a goofy sort of Shakespearean thing. And she produced that one as well. But what struck me was that, you know, there was an audience, and there was an immediate response to it. You know, you write a short story and you send it out to Esquire magazine, which is sort of like my big connection. Although they never published one of mine, I got close a lot, you know, with an editor there. But, you know, it would be months before I'd hear back from anyone at Esquire, you know, from my guy there. And you know, this was so immediate, the audience response. And so then I wrote another play, and then I wrote another play, and then I wrote another play. And, you know, then I directed a play that I wrote, and then I directed a play that somebody else wrote. And, you know, so, you know, one thing snowballed from there.
That's wonderful. I love that it was just like, you got the bug.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So you write scripts.
I do.
So tell us, I always find this so fascinating, but tell us how you begin writing a script and get the inspiration and get it all onto paper.
Yeah, that's, I mean, so my degrees now are, in writing and directing, even my master's degree. But I'm not, I've never been one of those people, and I probably maybe should have been one of those persons who sits down and, writes every day from, 10 in the morning to 2 in the afternoon. That has never, ever, ever been me. So, I generally wait till something captures my imagination. It might be some story in a newspaper. I'll use my play Iris as an example. There was an article in the New York Times that I stumbled on 10, 12 years ago about a young woman who was a Cornell student. She was a freshman at Cornell, and was in her first semester there, and got into a terrible, terrible car accident one night. So she's essentially brain dead. She recovers from her physical injuries, but she has no motor function, and she ends up in a critical care facility, and she's languishing there for years. So 9 years later, she comes up pregnant. So obviously, she's being kept alive,
right?
And her parents, who were pretty devout Catholics, could not bring themselves to pull the plug, although that had been sort of the medical recommendation all along, and they still couldn't pull the plug, and she comes up pregnant, and so no one quite knows. Obviously, she's raped, but no one knows how that happened. Who it was, and that just always sort of stuck in my brain, and I kept wondering, well, what happened to that infant? Did that infant survive? And if that infant survived, how old would that infant be now, today? What would he or she be doing? What would his or her name be? So I just created that character, and I named her Iris. And I grew the play around that incident and the discovery of this woman being pregnant, and then the detective gets involved, and the local parish priest gets involved, and kind of becomes a little bit of a mystery. But the character of Iris is there, kind of weaving all the way throughout. She's like a teenager at this point, So, so it's just something that sort of captured my imagination, and I ask myself the what if question all the time. What if?
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool. I love that you ask yourself so many questions that like an actor would ask themselves when they're building a character as well.
Sure.
That's so interesting. Very cool.
Yeah.
Now, have you been writing a lot during the pandemic?
Yeah, I actually have. It's funny, I've been past few years I've been teaching a playwriting workshop at the Springfield Museums, and typically while I'm doing that, something will happen, and I'll start writing a play on my own. So the last time I did that, I wrote a play called Betty in the Patch, which was kind of inspired by, I don't know if you're too young, I'm sure. There's a great restaurant out in Agawam called Betty's in the Patch, owned by, it was a family, restaurant set down in the patch of woods, and it was great food, and it was a great kind of very intimate sort of getaway, Yeah. And sadly it burned down, right? But if you're a certain age, you will have remembered Betty in the Patch. You'd have taken a date there for sure. I know I did, right? So I wrote a play inspired by Betty's in the Patch. So during this pandemic, and we're going to produce that play supposedly next year if we get to reopen.
Sweet.
during during my quarantine time here, I've written another play. We're going to do a reading, actually, a Zoom reading, in August, next month, on the 25th, I think. So it'll be via our website, and people can tune in and check it out. Story about a young woman who was given up for adoption right after she was born. She ends up growing up in England, so she's a Brit, right? But she's now living on Ibiza, off the coast of Spain, right? And the woman who was pregnant and gave her up hires a lawyer to track her down, because she's terminal, she's ill, and she wants to connect with this long lost daughter, right? And so they do sort of connect, and the daughter's going to inherit this honky tonk bar that the mom owned, and she comes from Ibiza, Spain, to the States to kind of see this bar and settle things, and learn about her biological family, and in the course falls in love. So,
Of course.
of course. So we're going to do a reading of that play.
Great.
Coming up. So.
Oh, I love that. So now tell us how, I want to move on to the Majestic.
Yeah.
Because it's such a staple of the theater community. And so I think there's a couple of questions that I wanted to throw at you, just because I feel like some people, it's 25 years now, right?
Yeah, well, probably, we think about the theater company was first formed in 92.
92.
So what does that make it?
28 years.
Yeah.
27, 28 years.
Yeah.
And some people might not know how it came to be. So my first question for you is, how did the Majestic come to be?
Well, in part, it was kind of a response to the old Stage West. And, I've always, where I sort of cut my teeth there, my professional teeth, at the old Stage West. And, I have this fundamental belief about a system of regional theaters across the country, which began to pop up in the 60s, right? All over the country. And sort of that founding notion of a regional theater system was that artists like yourself, didn't have to go to New York in order to ply your craft, and you could earn your living within your community. And that's sort of the bedrock foundation of a regional theater system. Well, what my experience at Stage West was that even the few people back then who were sort of union affiliated couldn't get an audition at Stage West, at their regional theater. Now, I know because for 3 years I set up the auditions, and we would do seasonal auditions, and I set them up. So that was just sort of fundamentally wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So, I left Stage West, and I ended up out in Chicago for a while, and then ended up back here doing some other stuff. But decided to put this theater company together, and part of the idea was to, number one, find and develop a permanent performing space that we owned, that was ours,
right?
And that we would always compensate people,
Mm-hmm.
because we wanted people to work at a professional standard, even though the compensation may not have been great, but always from day one, people were compensated. And I think we just sort of grew from there. And Stage West had its own kind of problems, and it's sort of slip sliding, and you know,
Yeah.
and you know, a lot of people, a lot of old timers will tell us that the Majestic, in some respects, reminds them of the old Stage West on the Big E grounds. You know, the intimacy of the space. You know, yeah.
That's awesome.
But so we just kept going. No,
Just keep moving.
just kept going. Investing in the facility, you know, in investing in production values,
Hmm.
you know.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's how you garner interest and get people excited about your product. So
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
that.
And
Now, oh yeah.
over the years, I mean, we've kind of sort of developed a formula, I guess you'd say. I mean, we typically will do 2 musicals a year. Uh, you know, one typically will be a large cast musical and the other will be a small cast musical. Not always true, but sometimes true. Um, a comedy in the second slot, a holiday show, um, a play in the January slot, which might be a little kind of more offbeat or more contemporary. Um, a play in the March slot that's typically a classical kind of play, um, classical American mostly, and then a musical to close out the year. And
I mean, that's such a great way to build a season, to bookend with musicals,
yeah,
because musicals garner so much money.
right.
You know, people love musicals, and they can help you build that account forward and help you pay for the next and so forth and so on.
Well, interestingly enough, the finances of producing a musical, um, you know, you may pull in a lot of money, but you've put out a lot of
Put a
money.
lot of money in. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So as you know,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
probably, you know, for the longest time, I think Miss Saigon was our most expensive musical in terms of what it cost us to produce it. And, but it was also the musical that generated the most revenue.
Hmm. Makes
But,
sense.
you know, when you factor in uh, the cost of a mortgage, you know, of maintaining a facility,
Yeah.
and insurance and all of those other things, you know, all the kind of front of house staffing and, you know, all that kind of stuff. You know, you don't make any money.
No.
It's not like New York theater, which is all commercially driven. So
No, that makes sense. I applaud you, man, for putting on such like crazy seasons that are just so different, and you just keep going, and it's awesome.
well, you know, for the longest time, and you know, we've adhered to that old sort of subscriber formula, which
Hmm.
a lot of theaters have tried to move away from. You know, they offer different sort of packages and gimmicks to get audience in, and we've just stayed very, very traditional on our subscription base. And I think we've educated uh, our audience in the sense that, you know, we're going to produce 5 plays a year, and you know, every play is not going to be everybody's cup of tea. You know, so the play that any particular audience member thinks is really great,
Hmm.
you know, might be the play that the subscriber that's sitting right beside him goes, meh, I don't know, right? And vice versa. And so what you're doing as a subscriber is you're supporting an entire season, but you're also supporting your fellow audience members, you know, and it's that collective sort of sharing that makes the theater unique, you know, that makes us what we do unique. It's not television, it's not film, there's nothing else like it, you know, it's like one-on-one. And So
I like that. It's true. It's so true.
absolutely true. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, how do you cast a show?
Ah, we do a week's uh, worth of auditions every spring, usually the first week of June, and it'll be for all of the shows in the coming year.
Okay.
So by the time that week winds up, my brain is kind of like boom.
I was going to say fried.
Yeah, and depending, we've seen as many as 300 performers during that week, and but typically it's closer to maybe 120, 130, but and every now and then, there'll still be an open slot, and then I'll have to go into New York and rent a room at what's the spot there in New York?
Oh my God, so many have closed.
Yeah.
Pearl?
No.
Chelsea?
Ripley
Shetler?
Greer. Ripley Greer.
Ripley Greer, okay.
Yeah. But I'll just be looking for one character,
Mm-hmm.
So,
Awesome.
or two, possibly two. But
And you do callbacks at the same time, or do you pick a different day?
I generally I don't really do callbacks as a matter of course. I mean, sometimes I will call people back in, but I generally don't.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So now here's because we're in a pandemic, this is a question I have to ask because, we all want to support theater. We all want to support the local theaters. So this is kind of like your chance to let everybody know what the Majestic is doing virtually to keep people entertained and creative.
Well, virtually, we're doing a good bit of online programming. Our Majestic Children's Theater, we've been fortunate in that we have pretty good DVDs, recordings of our children's theater shows, and we've been streaming those every week. So it's been a new one, and those are all archived. Everything we do online ends up being archived, and so if you can't get to it on the during the week that it's streaming, the following week you can go back and dig it out and find it. So we do that. We do I do another program which is very similar to what you and I are doing right now, called Behind the Curtain at the Majestic, and that's sort of kind of an inside the actor's studio.
Yeah,
right.
I've watched a couple of them. They're really good.
Yeah, and it's lets our audience kind of connect with some of our performers in a very personal kind of way, that's separate from a character way, or separate from a play, and so yeah, I enjoyed that. So we do that once a week, and then also doing a playwriting workshop that meets once a week, and I'm going to use that same core of actors that we're doing the reading for the Lady Slipper.
Oh, nice.
As reading some of all this new writing that's coming in through this playwriting workshop. So we're staying busy.
Yeah, and that's all on your website, correct?
All on the website, sure.
Fantastic. Yeah. I want to make sure everyone knows where they can go to see all this awesome stuff. So I have a question now. I like to do one question that's kind of like just a fun question.
Sure.
And this is one of my personal favorites, and that's tell us something about yourself a lot of people don't know.
We talked about this.
Yeah, we did.
Back in my days in Spain, and I was actually in the Marine Corps at the time, stationed in Spain. But I had a security job, and that gave me a lot of flexibility. So I lived out in the town and kind of lived a Spanish life, really. And I met up with some folks who were involved in bullfighting. Now, one guy was backing this young bullfighter in the town who was becoming kind of a little bit famous, and we would follow him around, and so got him to show me some different passes and moves and things like that, and talk about bullfighting, and so I got kind of interested in it, and that was in my Hemingway period too, for sure. And so, long story short, I became, I think, either the fourth or the fifth American to actually be licensed to fight bulls in Spain professionally.
That's so crazy to me.
So I had a short-lived career as a bullfighter.
That's so cool, though. That's so cool. Oh, man. All right. So this is our last question. It's my personal favorite. I think that everyone answers this question in their own way, but it rings so truthful and universal to everybody. And that is, what draws you to live theater, to live performance?
What draws me? Well, again, it's that communion with an audience. You know, it's that one-on-one connection, and that's what draws me to it. And that's and I guess I have to say also that, you know, what you're doing, taking on this project with K&E and trying to grow it from the ground up, and what Aaron Green has done out in Munson, and you know, a few other people as well. They just, that to me is very inspiring, to be honest with you, because I think I've been where you're at.
Yeah,
for sure. You know, and that, you know, what is it that it's a calling, right? It's our calling. It's not a job. I mean, we might get paid for it, but it's not a job.
Right.
It's a calling, and it's it's our life.
It's our livelihood. It's our life. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I love that. Well, Danny, thank you so much for joining us on the Local Spotlight series.
Oh, you got it. I'm really pleased that you invited me.
Well, this was lovely, and I can't wait to see you in person.
Yeah, one of these days.
Thank you, Danny. You have a good night.
Thanks so much, Ed.
Bye.
Bye.
Danny Eaton, everybody. Thank you so much for watching again. Really quickly, just a reminder, if you are on Facebook, in the comments section below, there is a PayPal link. If you click on that, you can donate and help K&E Theater Group with their supersized 2021 season. Let's get the rights for those shows, which we're really excited about. If you are not on Facebook right now, you're on IGTV or our YouTube channel, or like I said before, you're on Facebook and you want to do it later, you can go to our website, ketg.org, click on Support KETG, and donate there. While there, take a look at what we have coming up. Take a look at past Local Spotlight series interviews. You can also find that there. Read up about our board and donate. So thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Have a great evening.